two paths exist in every meaningful moment of a young man's life, not in the dramatic philosophical sense that gets discussed in books and lectures. In the practical sense of this specific morning and this specific choice and what happens in the next 30 seconds when the easy option and the right option both present themselves and only one can be taken. The easy option is always more visible. It has better lighting. It comes with immediate reward attached and no obvious immediate cost. The right option is quieter. It asks for something upfront and promises the return later in a currency that the present moment cannot fully appreciate. This gap between the immediate and the delayed is where most young men lose the will to choose correctly. The will is not absent. It is outspent by the machinery of instant gratification that the modern world has built with extraordinary sophistication, specifically around the weak points of the young male psychology. Understanding that the battle is real and that the deck is genuinely stacked against the right choice is not an excuse. It is the honest map of the terrain that the will needs to navigate. Choosing the right path consistently is an act of war against the most comfortable version of yourself. The comfortable version wants the sleep instead of the early start. It wants the distraction instead of the work. It wants the validation of staying where it is already known and accepted instead of the friction of moving towards something that has not yet been established. The comfortable version is not evil. It is just optimized for the present moment at the expense of every future moment that the right choices would have funded. The war against it is not won through hatred of it or the performance of extreme self-denial that makes the whole enterprise unsustainable within weeks. It is won through the daily quiet decision to give the right choice just enough priority over the comfortable one that the needle moves slightly in the right direction. The slightly is enough. The slightly compounded over months becomes significant. The significant compounded over years becomes the life. The will to choose the right path weakens every time it is exercised without being replenished, and understanding this is critical for any young man who has tried to change his behavior through sheer force of will and found that the force ran out faster than the change required. Willpower is a resource with a daily limit. Every decision drains it slightly. The decisions made in the morning, when the resource is full, are easier than the decisions made in the evening, when the resource has been spent down through hours of smaller choices and the accumulated friction of the day. The intelligent approach to this limitation is not to demand more willpower from yourself than the daily limit allows. It is to make the important decisions before the resource is depleted. Set the environment up in the morning so that the evening decision is already made. Commit to the direction before the temptation arrives rather than hoping the willpower holds when the temptation is standing right in front of you. The right path is almost never the obvious path, and it is rarely the path that gets the most social approval from the people around you. The obvious path is obvious because many people have already walked it and worn it smooth through repetition. The smoothness is comfortable, but the smoothness is also why walking it does not build the specific capability and character that the less obvious path requires and produces. The young man who chooses the right path for his specific life rather than the obvious path for the average life will experience a specific kind of loneliness that comes from moving in a direction that the people around him are not moving in. This is not a sign that the direction is wrong. It is a sign that the direction is genuinely his rather than borrowed from the consensus. The right path belongs to the person walking it. It was shaped by their particular gifts and their particular purpose and their particular understanding of what they are supposed to do. with the one life they were given. It does not look the same for two different people, and the comparison of your path to another person's is the fastest available route to abandoning the right one. Fear is the primary obstacle between a young man and his will to choose correctly. Not the dramatic fear of physical danger, but the quieter fears that run more behavior than most men would be comfortable admitting. The fear of choosing and being wrong, and having the wrong choice be visible to people whose opinion matters. The fear of committing fully to a direction and discovering that the full commitment does not produce the result that justified the commitment. The fear of moving away from what is familiar and safe toward what is right and uncertain. All of these fears are real, and all of them are working against the will in every moment the will is trying to operate. The method for reducing their power is not to wait until they are gone, because they do not go away before the action happens. They reduce through the action itself. Every time the right choice is made in the presence of the fear loses a small amount of its authority over the next decision. The will gets built through use in the presence of resistance, not in the absence of it. There is a conversation that happens inside a young man in the moment between the two choices that is worth learning to hear clearly. It is a fast conversation. Sometimes it happens in less than a second. The right option is recognized, the resistance appears, the negotiation begins. The comfortable option makes its case. The will either holds or it does not. Most men are not fully conscious of this conversation because it happens so quickly and so automatically that it does not feel like a conscious process at all. It feels like preference or instinct or simply what happens next. But it is a decision made by a real part of you about what the next moment will look like and what it will build toward. Learning to slow that conversation down even slightly, to notice it happening before it concludes, creates a gap where the will can operate deliberately rather than letting the automatic process run toward the comfortable conclusion it was always heading toward. The gap is small. Everything important happens in it.